Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Now, I just wanted to share something really quickly. So I just got off a call with one of my own students and got me thinking about something that I feel like I haven't talked too much about on this channel, but it is extremely important for you to be thinking about with your job search at any stage in your career, whether you are junior, mid-tier, or even at a senior level, okay? And this is your environment, okay? So I was talking about this with one of my students and I was trying to advise her how she needs to really think about what type of environment she prospers in best and what type of work she'll enjoy most. Now, obviously, a big part of my job search and what I help with people is trying to help them to understand what type of company they want to work at. Okay, now obviously, if you're trying to find your first ever job, you're not going to really notice the difference between a small company, medium sized company, and a large company until you've worked in multiple environments. And as somebody who has now worked at a small company and a large company, I thought I would talk a little bit about my own story here as to what I realized I liked and what I don't like, and what I would share with other people to think about as they go on with their job search. So, for me, first and foremost, I've pretty much worked the exact same job at two different companies. Okay. And I've realized straight off the bat, I much prefer working in a larger team. Okay. For me personally, I actually started working in the corporate world in a small company. I literally had two other colleagues and that was it. Whereas now I have multiple colleagues. I've not just got colleagues in the office with me, I've got people all around Australia that I can talk to and connect with at any time. Okay. One thing I've noticed for myself personally is the learning aspect of it. Okay, that's first and foremost to me. Okay, when you're working in a smaller company, you're only exposed to working with one to two other people. Okay, which means you're only being exposed to one or two different ideas, different philosophies, and just different things that you can learn throughout your career. Okay, it's one to two people in comparison to working at a larger company. For myself, I probably interact with about maybe 20 to 30 people, but at other companies, they're dealing with a lot larger, a lot larger scales and whatnot. Okay, so you can definitely be speaking to 50, 100 people even sometimes, and I think that that is extremely important to factor in when you're trying to think about what type of business you want to be working for. Okay. The second aspect, and this is also to me extremely important, and I know that it is really important to a lot of my own students as well when I speak to them, is the social aspect. Okay. Now, when you're working in a small company and you've only got a handful of colleagues, your social circle is extremely small, okay? And you better hope to God that you get along with these people. Otherwise, it's going to be an extremely awkward and just annoying process for yourself. Now, for me personally, with my colleagues at my first company, it was pretty indifferent. I didn't hate them. They weren't my best friends either. We wouldn't catch up outside of work hours, but it was fun. It was a normal, calm, standard working relationship that I had with them. So nothing bad there. Whereas now, though, I would say at my new company where I'm at, I really genuinely enjoy talking to the people there. Okay. For me, when it's a Sunday night, I don't dread going into work the next day. I don't sit there and go, oh, I have to go into work tomorrow and I have to see these people. I actually go and I'm like, I'm actually excited to work. And I know for a lot of people out there, that dread is obviously half of it's actually going to work and, being in an office for 8 to 9 hours a day. But the other part of that dread comes from the actual people that you work with. You either hate your boss, you hate your colleagues, you hate the clients you deal with, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You're interacting with people that you don't enjoy, that you don't enjoy the company of. So naturally, you have that dread when you go into work. Okay. For myself personally, I don't have that. And that is something that I tell a lot of people to really think about specifically. Now, again, I understand, okay, you can't control the people that you work with, okay? But I think it's extremely important that you guys just take that step back after watching this video and start thinking about what type of company or what type of size of team would you prefer to work with the most? Do you think you would work better with just a couple of people? Because that may be better for a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. That company and that setup may be best for a lot of you guys watching this. You guys may prefer that idea of, if you're getting into a new industry, only being exposed to one or two different ideas so you don't overwhelm yourself with different types of knowledge. That makes total sense. I 100% understand that. For me personally, it wasn't a click, okay? For you guys, it may be different, but that is something I really want you guys to think about now moving forward with your job search. And why is this so important is that it helps you guys now narrow down that search a lot more now. Okay, so you understand now, obviously, the type of environment that you're working in. Are you working with people? Are you working with numbers? Are you working by yourself? Are you working in a team? What type of service are you delivering? What type of work are you doing? That's obviously one part that's really important environment wise. your actual day-to-day work and the work that you're doing, but the environment that you do it in is almost as important, if not even more important. So I think that's something that you guys should really be factoring in with your job searches that you guys are probably not doing a lot of consciously at the moment. Okay, I know for a lot of people and a lot of the students that I mentor on a one-to-one level, a lot of them are just so desperate to get their feet in the water and just start applying for jobs that they'll take anything. You know what I mean? Because I was in that boat as well. When I first started, I didn't care where I went. I just wanted somewhere to start. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not advising people against the idea of, starting at one company, learning what you like and what you don't like, and then through experience, you figure out what works and what doesn't. So eventually you go somewhere else. I'm not against that either. But I just think if I can save you guys any time in the world, as a career advisor and a recruiter, it's actually just to take that step back before you commit to anything and just give it that extra thought. What type of environment do I actually want to be in? You know what I mean? Do I want to work with a lot of people? Do I want to work with just a couple of people? You know what I mean? Do I like the idea of going into work and just seeing the same two faces every day? You know what I mean? For myself personally, I think it's super refreshing working in a bigger team. You know what I mean? I think as well, like maybe the size of company that I said, some people will argue that that's not even a big company, but let's just use the words big and small companies here, okay? Let's not be too literal. But yeah, working in a bigger team and going into work and seeing, 20 to 30 fresh faces every single day, it's so refreshing. You know what I mean? Like I'm at my desk, for example, and let's just say hypothetically, I don't, but let's just say hypothetically, I hated the people that I sat next to or across. I can get up and move around the office and talk to other people. You know what I mean? That is a super refreshing aspect of a job that I think a lot of people don't give credit for or even mention as much as they should. Whereas if you're stuck in an environment where you're just working with one to two other people and you don't enjoy their company, it's going to be tiring. You're going to get exhausted very, very quickly. And those hours in the day, like for myself, if I'm working next to one person, let's say that person's not even there and I'm just stuck working by myself, that hour is going to feel like two. Whereas, for example, I think as well from a social perspective, it also helps when you're working in a bigger team, you kind of have that social aspect where it's like, do you want to go out and grab a coffee? Do you want to go for a walk after lunch? Like little things like that, you can't do in a smaller team if, you're not exposed to that many extra personalities. So I think from a social perspective, it's super, super important to factor in that and just think, okay, where's going to get the best out of me? Am I going to enjoy, bouncing off different types of personalities, or do I like that structure of just one to two different people? You know what I mean? So the actionable step I want you guys to take from this video is to not obviously panic too much about where you're starting. At the end of the day, what's most important is that we are working a job that we actually enjoy. But what I realized is as well from my own perspective is that the job itself was the exact same at my two different companies, but my approach to my work and how much I enjoyed it is a lot better now in a much bigger, more socially dynamic environment and talking to more people, seeing different faces every single day. I get a lot more enjoyment. I prosper a lot more in that type of environment, even though I'm doing the exact same type of work. So I thought I would share that with you guys today, and I think as well it's something that you guys should be really thinking about as well. It's just kind of where you feel like you work best. You know what I mean? What kind of environment is going to get the best out of you? Obviously, from the work perspective, that's very important because that's what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. But in the sense of actually who you're working with, whether it's just a couple of faces or multiple, that's what you've got to be thinking about as well. Just kind of thinking, well, where am I going to feel most comfortable? You know what I mean? I thought I would share that with you guys today, and hopefully you guys can take some value from it. Okay? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do want to work with me on a one-to-one level, or you are interested in learning more about myself and what I offer to people, feel free to click the links below in the description. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.